I trust in God, my Savior, the one who would never fail. He would never fail.
Did those girls deserve to die?
No, sir, they did.
Here's his graduation picture right here. If you want to see his graduation picture on the wall. He was 60-something, so that's his old picture. There's all the family photos of their graduations, all the grandchildren and great-grandchildren and all that good stuff.
I'm the mother of 7 kids, 4 boys and 3 girls. We moved around a lot because we was trying to get affordable place for me and my 7 kids. Every neighborhood we moved to, everybody knew Glenn.
Growing up with Glenn, it was cool. We're like twins because we were born in the same year. He's born in February, I was born in December. Glenn was the type of person that would liven up the room. No matter what he was, he livened the room up with a smile, laugh. It wasn't a day that went by that Glenn didn't do things to try to make somebody else's life happy or make you forget about your problems. No matter what he went through, he was always there to motivate you, to uplift you.
He was like a head of the household, he really was. Whatever he made on his job, he gave me the bigger portion, he kept the small portion. That's how my children was. We were just that close. His love for football, it really started, I sat on a Bay Street in the City Gas area, because he would go out there and throw ball all day long. That's what he wanted to do, play football. He was good. He was good. He was really good. When he left and went to college, he was a stronghold on the football team, He wanted to do as much as he can to win the game, And he hurt his knee. And when he hurt his knee, they sent him back home so he could do his healing. He was real discouraged about it because he really wanted to make a career out of it.
We wasn't around drugs. Even though the neighborhood we stayed in was predominantly poor neighborhood, when he got his knee messed up, it devastated him because he loved football. But then the drug life just took him.
All his football players wasn't into anything. They was most like he was, just kind of, but he got with a group that wasn't in his league or whatever I would say. And he just started, doing things that he wasn't raised to do, and that's why he just strayed away from the family, some going here and there and not coming back home,
It's just that hard drugs, and I think the harder the drugs got, the worse of his life got.
He had been arrested for shoplifting at a grocery store, trying to get him some food, which I told him he didn't have to do that. His probation officer called me and said, "Have you seen Glenn?" I said, "No, not in about a day or 2. I said, "What's wrong?" He said, "Well, he got a warrant for his arrest." I said, "For what?" And he said, "Well, I'll talk with you about it later, but if you see him, tell him to call his probation officer." Glenn was exactly 1 block from my house when I found him. I was like in a daze most of the time, And they found him guilty, and they sentenced him to death. And it really just broke me down. I started crying, because I couldn't understand why they sentenced to death, and they sentenced to death within 1 hour of the trial. And the judge asked Glenn, "Do you want to say anything to the court?" He said, "No, I want my mom. I want a hug from my mama." And I hugged him. And I said, "Glenn," I said, "we in this together. You're going to be at a place that people's not going to like you. A lot of people are not going to like it, but I want you to love them. That God told you to love them. I said, when you see them, I want you to speak to them. They might not speak back to you. I want you to speak to them. To the gods and everything, the gods. I told him to speak to the gods, just speak to all of them. And that's what he did.
My name is Terry Solly, and I served as a field minister on Texas Death Row for approximately 6 years. I am the founder and president of Global Prison Outreach. I served a total of 28 and a half years in prison. I remember walking on death row, going to A-Pod for the first time, and just the atmosphere back there. You could almost cut it with a knife. It was so much tension, and it was so dark. And I spent my first week there just walking cell to cell, meeting the guys and getting to know the guys, because an inmate wearing white walking death row unescorted was unheard of. That never happened. I'd been there probably about 3 days, and I walked on to the section where Big White lived. I'd never met him before. He was on 2 row, and I had made my way on 1 row, meeting all the guys, introducing myself. And then when I went upstairs, I looked in his cell, and I really couldn't see him because he had his light off. But then he smiled, the biggest smile in the world, and stepped up to his door, and I saw Big White for the first time. And I don't know why I said it, but the first words out of my mouth was, "I bet you can sing." And he said, "Yeah, I can sing." I said, "Well, sing me a song." And he sang Amazing Grace. First conversation I ever had with him. He sang Amazing Grace.
My name's Kevin with Fight to Forgive, and I first met Big White about around 2 years ago when we came to share a forgiveness seminar. The way he had an influence, how he was respected, it was really evident that his life was totally transformed. And I had the privilege to see some of that up close, to see the character, to see how guards interacted with him, officials, and to see how even other inmates looked up to him. I've never seen and met one person almost every man looked up to or deeply respected as he was. And it's because of who he became. He was a trustworthy person. He had integrity, and there genuinely was a care for people.
You know, most of the men on death row isolate themselves. They're busy fighting for their lives, doing legal work, or they just become recluse in their cells. But Big White was just a little bit different. You know, he was always talking to people, starting conversations, concerned about people, asking how they're doing, asking how their family were doing. When new men would arrive at death row, you know, Big White was one of the first ones to put together a care package, because these men arrive from county jails and they don't have anything. They only have a toothbrush or toothpaste to brush their teeth. So Big White and other guys would put a care package together with toothpaste, some commissary items together, and send them to him. And Big White, you usually write him a note telling him, "Hey, this is from us. It's for free. You don't owe us anything. We just want to make sure you're okay, you're all right." But that was Big White's character. He did that all the time. You know, when men on death row were going through things, Big White was able to sense it, you know, and he would write them letters, you know, and send it to them. In prison, they call them a kite, and they would send it to each other. And Big White was even me as a field minister, walking death row, there'd be times when he would notice something in my face, or I was going through some struggles, and he would stop me. And he'd say, "Hey, Solly, you okay, man? Let's talk." And I would just talk to him about my problems, what I was going through. And just as much as I ministered to him, he ministered and uplifted me. And I was the one with the responsibility of all the men on death row. You know, one of the things I used to always talk to Big White about was his desire to leave a different legacy to his son than he felt that he was leaving. You know, we kind of had some of that in common. You know, my father introduced me to crime, and my dad left a different legacy to me, and I was trying to break that cycle and leave a different legacy to my daughter. If Big White had one struggle in his life, it was that he felt that because of where he was and the things that he had done in his life, that he could not leave a good legacy to his son. You know, I would talk to him sometime and he would cry. And he would just, out of heartache about wanting to leave a better example for his son. And I would tell him, you are. Look what you're doing around here. You know, you're leaving a legacy to these men here. And whether you know it or not, you're making an impact in your son's life because he's watching you. You know, you're not the same person who committed those crimes all those years ago. You're a different man now. You're a different human being now. And your son sees that and recognizes it. And it's difficult being a parent in prison, not being able to have contact with your kids for years at a time sometimes. And he would struggle with that. He would struggle with the gaps in his son's life that he missed. And he would blame himself a lot of times for the things his family was going through. You know, that if he felt that if he would have made better decisions and been there, they wouldn't have to struggle so much. So that was his biggest battle. Big White always smiled. He was a light. But when he began talking about his son, it's like that light dimmed. Because I think he felt like a failure as a father. You know, that if he failed anyone, it was his son.
We forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil.
I'm Chris Flowers, the oldest of the three. Let's see, I was mainly raised a split between my mom and my grandmother. Pretty much you could say my grandmother took the first half of my life. My mom finished off the rest. Kind of seen my dad sporadically. But every time I seen him, it's always like, we're gonna have fun, we're gonna do this and do that. He always made sure it's like a great enjoyment and stuff like that in my life. I really couldn't tell you who he was in the beginning. I could tell you who I believe who I thought he was. You know, just a hardworking man that stayed out there just working, not knowing what he was actually doing. But I always heard a lot of positive things about him, more than the negative. And I always harped on the positive things. So he was a person that I didn't want to be, if it makes any sense. And what I mean by that was, I didn't want to be the person that wasn't in my kid's life. I think we were sitting down one day in the kitchen eating dinner and it came up on TV. We didn't know. My mom knew, but you know, she wasn't really talking to us about it. I can't really remember exactly how we had the conversation, but she pretty much just broke it down to us, you know, what they said that he did. Our relationship with our dad at the time was kind of strained, so we wasn't really that close. So to us, we're like, oh, okay. Keep it moving. Yeah, I think it probably hurt maybe for like a day, maybe a week, but it's moved on because the relationship wasn't really there. It's like I knew of him, but I didn't know him because he was always back and forth in and out. But during that time, he was always consistently writing me. I read him every now and then, and I rarely wrote him back. I would say I was probably in the 10th grade when I finally realized he was actually on death row. I'll tell him I'm not gonna write him back. And he'll say, well, I ain't gonna stop writing. Eventually you'll read them. No matter what, there was a letter coming. And he never missed a birthday. Never missed a birthday. You know, so he consistently wrote me. Even though I wasn't visiting him, I knew he was still there. So I said, oh, I got a letter from my dad. I know it's harsh at the time. I said, oh, cool, he alive. Keep it moving. And there'd be times I forgot all about him. My wife had told me, at the time she was my fiance girlfriend, she said, I'm very family oriented and I believe in family. She said, if you want to have a relationship with me, you gotta have a relationship with your dad. So I had to make that choice. If I really want to be with her, then I gotta go talk to him. So, all right, let me go talk to him. Want to talk to him? I talk to him. No. do it again. Then we'll talk a little bit more. Okay, I did it. Do it again. And then we just actually start having, my dad and I had conversations, so she helped build their relationship. Now, did I stagger off a lot? Yeah, I did. A whole lot. But, like I said, she consistently kept in conversation with him. She's the one that really brought us together, honestly. And without her, I probably wouldn't have a relationship with him to this day. He got to stay. And I was just excited, but just angry at the same time. Here we are, crying, going through all these different emotions because of the choices you made. That's what I told him, man, if I could get behind that glass and hit you right in the face. And he said, you know what, if you could, I'll let you. I said, yeah, but you hit me back. No, I won't. I'll take it. He said, as long as you can touch me, I'll take it. I was like, well, it's no fun. You know, I didn't want to do it now. I want you to fight back, you know? So that's when I actually really put in more effort into trying to see him and talk to him. And he became more, I said, you know, I lost my dad, but I felt like I lost my best friend also because I know I could talk to him about anything and he wouldn't judge me. Even when I was doing things that he didn't agree upon, he never put me down. Honestly, the best times I had with my dad was the last 2 years. That's the best. Because he was granted to have the tablet and we could make phone calls. That's how I truly felt I had my dad with me. Because I knew no matter what's going on in my life, at 2 o'clock, my phone is gonna ring. And I can tell whatever issues I got going on. I ain't have to wait a whole week for a letter to come back to me. Like I told him, I could write you about problem 1. By the time you get it and write me back, problem 30 now. I don't want to go back to the rest of them to tell you what else what happened. Now you can call me every day, 7 days a week. Sitting there listening to the games with him and stuff like that. Even to the point where when he called me while I'm working, it got to the point where he could hear the certain sounds that I'm doing out there. He knows exactly what I'm doing, you know, and stuff like that. And then I always send him pictures of all the aspects, my cooking and all this other stuff. And he said, man, I can't even smell it, but I can taste it, you know. And he showed out to all his friends and stuff like that. It just made me feel good, you know. My dad is bragging on me. And he always told me how proud he was of me. He always told me that. He was always supportive, like I said, but I said, even though I'm grown, he just made me feel like a little boy again. I just wish I could just like, he did that stuff, I wish I could just like lay in his arms. Just hold him for a good time. The relationship he built with his grandsons and everything. Because I know they truly miss him. Because they could talk about sports all day long. You know, just, even though the call is only 30 minutes, he said, can I call back? So he called back as much as you want. He always told his grandsons to use him as an example. Don't live your life like him. And he just said everything to me. He was the dad I always wanted.
This is our family picture. We was little. This is me in the corner looking all buffy-eyed. We were very close. We got even closer when he went in. We got even closer because we go see him all the time. We would talk and laugh. It was so much fun. Once he changed his life over, he was just on high mode with God. He was everywhere. He was good. I like his change he did. I love it.
Big White always believed in God ever since I met him. But I think what Big White struggled with until probably 2022 was stepping into the role that God had called him to. And I believe I began to see that come out of him when we asked him to come and be this leader of this faith-based program. I believe he knew that God had always called him to be a leader because that was the qualities that he had. That was his natural abilities. Other guys would look to him. Other guys would respect him because he was the same every day. But in 2022, a shift happened in him. And he didn't just surrender his life to Jesus as Savior. He surrendered his life to Jesus as Lord. He told me that he wanted to be baptized because he wanted the world to know, including the men he lived with, the officers, everybody to know that he was now surrendered to Jesus Christ. Whether it was 6 months or 6 years or 16 years, that he was going to live his life serving the Lord and impacting as many people as he could. And, you know, it was just amazing just to be able to share in that with him and to be the one who was able to baptize him. Experience that I will never forget.
After he found Christ in prison, he wrote me and told me, called me on the tablet and told me, he said, Mama, I want to be baptized. That was a proud mama for me. It really was. Talk about his faith with the Lord. I go up there to pray for him, and he ended up praying for me.
He became one of the greatest change agents back there on Texas death row. He began impacting the lives of men, officers. I mean, he already was, but the magnitude was just so much more because he had finally surrendered to the calling that God had on his life and became the leader that God had always called and equipped him to be.
I met Garcia when I was still new on the road 20 years ago. All he ever did was show us love, and I still have no idea what he fought through to be that way. Because of Garcia, I started singing in public again, just because he asked me to sing him a song. I even led worship in my section, and right before he left us, we sang, Trust in God.
I trust in God, my Savior, the one who would never fail.
One of the greatest things about Big White was you can walk on a pod and hear him singing. And it all the time. You know, it didn't matter what time of day it was, he was always singing. But he wasn't just singing, he would sit in his cell and copy over and over and over lyrics to songs and send them to all the men in the section so that when he sings, they can join in with him and sing. And I remember the first time the section got together, we moved the administration moved the 14 men over there, and they tried singing their first song. And they called me over there. They had been practicing for a couple days. And they said, hey, Solly, come over here. We were ready to sing. So I sat on the stairs and I'm listening to them sing, and 2 or 3 of them did pretty good, but they sounded horrible. And I said, Big White, y'all got some work to do. And about another week and a half later, I went back over there, and Big White worked with those guys and worked with those guys. And I just went back over there and sat down on the stairs. And this time when they sang, I just sat there with my head down, trying not to cry because I'm supposed to be a tough guy. And when it was all done, I went up to Big White and I said, man, you did good, man. Y'all sound good. You know, and from that moment on, Big White would lead those men in worship every day, before every class. You know, he was just He was that guy, man. He's Big White.
He would tell Monica to send him songs so he could learn them. I said, do you have a tune with him? He said, no, I just say the words. I don't know the tunes to him. If he didn't get up in the morning singing a song, they would holler, Big White. They would start a song off for him.
There was no one that I have met like Big White. He was a worshiper. He led people in worship. He would always be the first voice we would hear every time we stepped into death row. He would be the first voice we'd hear. Often he would be singing, but part of Big White's legacy of being a worshiper, he really challenged me as a person to worship him in every season. That's what he did. After Big White had received his execution date, we went to visit him while he was in an area that's designated, they call it Death Watch. And this is where men are moved to. Once they receive a date, they become isolated from their communities and the sections that they were living in. But my wife, Sarah, and I had the privilege to come and to just spend, 20, 30 minutes with him. It was there that when we were talking with him and we just said, is there anything we could do for you right now? Is there anything we can? And his request was this: can we just worship together? I remember we just began to sing a song, I Trust in God. We began to sing Amazing Grace at the door. We just began to worship, and it was such a special, it's a moment in my life that will be forever marked.
My last time I saw him in visitation, he's in a little booth surrounded by glass, and I was able to put my hand on the glass and he put his hand on the glass, and I was just able to pray with him and tell him I loved him. And as Big White always did, he just had this big smile on his face, and he's just like, Solly, don't worry, I know where I'm going. He said, I'm okay. Everybody was so worried about him, but he was okay. He was so worried about everybody else. He's worried about his mom, about his son, just what they would go through to witness him being executed, to have to experience that. That was his biggest concern. I've been with a lot of men who've been executed. It was a very, very difficult job. But the way that man died, singing, when I heard that, I was like, man, that's Big White. That's my brother. That's my friend. And I remember telling Director Hazelwood, man, I couldn't be more proud of him than that. He died with his hope in Jesus. He died leaving a legacy. And he's missed. He's missed.
I trust in God, my Savior, the one who would never fail. He would never fail. Perfect submission, yeah. All is at rest, yeah. I know these are.
My name is Josiah Guy Flowers. I'm 10 years old and I play for the Green Lions of Beat.
Who's number 27?
Paul Papa.
people can change. They really can. I mean, sometimes you just gotta give people, second chances in life and allow them to help other people and things like that. Kids just hold a person down for almost 30 years. We're like, all right, come on, it's your time now. I believe he still had more work to do, but the Lord say, hey, you did what you could. It's time for you to come home.
God bless him. God turn my child around. That's my part I love right now. That's what keep me going through it. Keep me from breaking down sometimes, because I know he found God. And that's the main thing. He had a change. He changed. And I know that they probably feel like once you get behind walls, you can't change, but you can change, because God is behind the wall, just like he got here, And that's what he did. He changed.
We just want to thank y'all for coming out for this special occasion. And we're just going to say a few words right quick. Our Father, which art in heaven, we come now as humble we know how. Just want to thank you, Lord, for last night laying down, this morning rising. But most of all, we thank you for your Son, Jesus Christ, who made it all possible, Lord. We know we send these blues up to heaven right now. We just ask you to just grab one of them and give it to my brother, wherever he may be. We know he up there in heaven, Lord.
Big White is more than a friend to most of us. He is an institution of love, compassion, empathy, and dignity.
Glenn is my uncle, my mom's brother. For the last 30 years, I've got a birthday card every year. They would have some type of drawing that he would do, and I would mimic the drawing. I think I probably have at least half of those birthday letters or just because letters.
He was so humble and generous and kind. His relationship with Jesus was so inspirational, and I've seen so many hard men soften around him. He just had that effect on you.
Thank you for all the encouragement words that you have put throughout my life over the years.
Tell his sons that their dad loved them, and he was always bragging on them. He was so proud of them. He regretted the wrong choices he made, but he lived his life in prison as a man of integrity, a man of courage and good cheer. He was a godly man who loved his Lord.
He would motivate you. He would do anything for you that's right.
It's touched a lot of people. I just want to say, you, Glenn, I love you, bro, and until we meet again.
For him to be just one man, he touched so many. Even though he couldn't touch people in the physical form, just spiritually, mentally. He wasn't just working on me, he was working on everyone that he could reach out to.
Big White was one of the most loving, genuine brothers I've met here. He was someone everyone loved and respected here, even the officers. I will walk in and share with others the love that he showed me.
Big White was a man of God who spent his mornings studying the Word of God. Big White had an anointing for leadership, and other men naturally gravitated toward him. His legacy continues in the lives of all those he has touched and influenced while he was here with us.
Being around Big White kept me in check because he was always positive, and one of the only few people that I would listen to. I watched him grow stronger in faith, his walk with God, And that also made me change my ways as well. I can see his smile now. I used to call it the Big Papa smile.
Over the years, we shared so much together. But we were more like brothers than friends. He has truly helped to make some beautiful changes in my life. Glenn helped me to come into a better relationship with my two sons.
His loving, affable nature attracted people to him and never had a bigger neighbor. He was so humble and generous and kind. His relationship with Jesus was so inspirational, and I've seen so many hard men soften around him. He just had that effect on you.
Big White was such an encouraging person and would always get men who would not normally sing to sing with him. He inspired me so much.
Garcia was a beautiful soul, a man of God and of great character also. When I finally decided to begin my own journey to become a better person, Big White was one of the men I wanted to model my life after because of the man that he was.
Big White never changed on me, and he stayed the same. He was the same every time I saw him, just to see the joy and how the officers would talk and converse with him, how they could be having a bad day, and then with just one encounter with him, become totally joyful after talking with him.
Big White is an institution of love, compassion, empathy, and dignity. I've seen his effect on the hardest of men. You're so good, brother. He said, speaking directly into the goodness buried inside them. Be good. Men are better human beings from the moment they met Big White. He's provided us with a source of light, an example of faith, and a life worth emulating.
Garcia made a huge impact here and was loved by everyone. Garcia always had a kind word to share with me. He always made time for people and always maintained his faith in God. He was a light to many of us here.
He made me want to be a better Christian. I plan on taking all the love I have for my brother and give it away to honor the best he gave us by trying a little harder, to be there for others a little more, to love a little more, to push this darkness back, and to serve others and be merciful because I still get a chance to.
I would come to love and respect Big White like a father or a big brother, and that would stay with me for the rest of my life. While not a man of many words, there was power and love in every single word that he spoke. It was never about him. Big White is one of the reasons I am the man that I am today.
Big White's boldness helped many overcome their fear of what others would say or think of their faith and worship. He always praised and encouraged each singer. He reminded us that our worship was for Jesus and not about us. Our big brother chose the name Chain Breakers for our group as a description of what the Lord had done and continued to do in our lives. Break the chains of sin.
Your son was a joy to every life he touched, and with his loving heart and that giant smile of his, he was a lover of all things God. What I admired most about Big White was his godly heart. In all the time I knew him, I never once heard him say anything bad about another person. He saw the good in everyone.
If there was one that I'd have to say the world needed, it would be Big White. He remained the same from the first day that I met him, always present, a genuine giver of his time, possessions, and wisdom, non-judgmental, and a true guiding light. He led by example. His actions aligned with his words, so it was understood that his walk was real. If Big White said it, you could count on it. He was a man of integrity.